start. So in case you don't have any question, maybe I can start, right? It appears you don't have any question. Okay. Just let me know whether you can see the slides. Is the slide visible to you?
Yes.
Okay. So in the last class, one of the key point that we discussed was how to select switching frequency. And the summary was that if you remember, if we increase the switching frequency, then in any of the power electronic converter, we'll have some desired component. Right? So at the output, we'll have desired frequency component plus some undesired component. So an example was that in DC-DC converter, at the output, we had 0 Hertz component, which was desired, plus some AC component, which was undesired component. And this AC component, as we understood, it starts from the switching frequency. So maybe the Fs, then all odd harmonics comes, 3Fs, 5Fs, like this, right? So if you want to retain only the desired component and we want to eliminate the undesired component, so we should use a filter. And that filter should have only L, C, this thing, no R. And if you use a low pass filter, because we want to eliminate high frequency component in this particular case, so we'll be using a low pass filter. And if you use a LC filter, which you saw in the circuit diagram we studied earlier, so its cutoff frequency will be 1 by 2 pi root LC. So higher the Fs, basically if you look at the magnitude versus frequency plot of low pass filter. So this is frequency, this is the magnitude part. This value is 1, you can assume, maybe it's in log scale. So this is the point where output amplitude goes down to 70%, around 70.7%. So that is your F cutoff. After that, we can assume that the output will go down drastically, and that's how we will be able to eliminate those higher order components. As you increase the order of filter, this graph will come down even drastically, right? So you will be able to eliminate the high frequency component more in a sharp manner. So as order goes up, this will happen. What do you mean by order? Basically, the number of these LC values are there. Based on that, you know, if you have studied filter, you will understand this. So if we increase the switching frequency, I can increase my filter cutoff value, and LC values I can reduce. So what is the implication? Filter size will come down. If you remember in our earlier class, we said one of the main motivation of power electronics is to reduce the size of the solution, right? And one example I gave, that earlier days we used to have this big fan regulator, but nowadays you see there is a very small fan regulator. So this is an example of power electronic solution. But with increase of switching frequency, Fs is of course switching frequency. Our switching loss also increases. Switching loss increases. There is another problem known as EMI, EMC. Those are also EMI increases, but let us not go into that detail. Basically, you are turning on and off at faster rate, right? So that creates a DIDT, large DIDT, DVDT in the switches, and that leads to radiation of electromagnetic wave, and that may hamper your nearby other electronic components. So higher the frequency will be faster you need to turn on and off. So larger will be your DI and DVDT, DIDT. That will create EMI issue. Okay, so we don't discuss this for UG level course, so you should not. I'm not going into that depth. But as frequency increases, your switching loss will increase, and as a result, the temperature of the switch will increase. And to take out the heat easily, we need to use better heat sink or larger size heat sink, right? So what is the implication? Cost will increase. So we always have to have a design trade-off. The same thing you will see when we'll be studying DC to AC converter also. The similar philosophy will apply there. Next thing I tried to discuss was that how do we decide which switch to use for different application, and we discussed steps like how to decide voltage blocking rating, requirement, right? So there will be theoretical requirement, and then we'll be multiplying with safety factor. So how do you determine this voltage blocking? Basically, the voltage appearing across the switch when it is off. You can simply apply KVL and get it. Right. So an example we took, for example, if you look at this particular circuit, when this switch was on, so it is short circuited. So then entire DC bus voltage will appear across this switch which is turned off. So its voltage blocking requirement will be the maximum DC voltage that is appearing, right? So that is giving you the voltage blocking rating, and then we will be multiplying with 1.5 to 2, right? As per your design experience. If you are a very good designer, you can take 1.5. If you are an intermediate or beginner, you will take at least 2 times, so that your switch doesn't burn during transient, etc. And also, when you're turning on and off the switch, you know how much current is going to flow through your switch, right? So that you can calculate, because you must be knowing for what application you are designing this converter, what is the power rating. From that, and you know what is your input voltage, output voltage requirement. So from those data, you calculate what is your current rating requirement. So find out your current capability requirement. The next thing you want is that this should be low loss, high efficient solution. So basically, you will be doing that loss analysis. So based on these two, you will be decide some switch. So let's say you decide a switch. Okay, and how do you get a switch? So you search some website like element14.com, element14.in or .com, then Mouser, right? DigiKey. These are the sites where you go and you search for a particular device, say MOSFET, right? And they will give you different MOSFET ratings. So you can apply filter to determine what voltage rating minimum you require, what minimum current you require. So you apply this filter and they will give you some eligible MOSFETs. So you take up that MOSFET, select that switch, study its datasheet, and from the datasheet parameter, you calculate loss. So for loss calculation, you must have already seen that we need the voltage rating, voltage current value, then those switching transient time, T on, T off, right? And then we need RDS on, we need VCE set. These values we need. So some value you will get from datasheet, some value will come from your circuit. Okay. And based on that, you calculate what is loss. From that, you know what will be the efficiency of your converter. If you are happy with this, let's say you are getting 95% efficiency, 96% efficiency. If you are happy with that, you go with this particular select. If not happy, then iterate it again. So basically, select a different switch. And do the same process again, right? And this you do it till you get a good solution. There are some other points also. So once you've done it, you'd like to study the package of the device. What is package? You know, when you look at any switching device, it will look something like this. This is one of the most popular kind of packing. Then there are different other. This is a through hole mount. Then another category will be SMD, surface mount device. So there are different packages available for some devices. So you select what package you want, right? That will help in your PCB design. Then your heatsink selection. Okay, so this you do. Then also you select your driver circuit requirement. From driver circuit, okay, basically, as I told for MOS switches like MOSFET, IGBT, their gate junction, gate to emitter or gate to source is basically modeled like a capacitor. And how fast you can turn on and turn off a switch, that depends on how fast you can charge or discharge the capacitor. So you need certain amount of voltage, certain amount of current. So to understand how much current you need, what voltage you have to apply, for that you have to again get the information from data sheet, right? And if you feel like your driver circuit requirement is difficult, your say Q value is not within your desired zone, then you select a different switch. And there are some other minute things also which let us not discuss. Maybe if time permits, we'll come back and we'll discuss. But these are the basic requirement. You decide first what is your voltage requirement, what is your current requirement, how much is your loss coming in, whether you're happy with it or select a different switch. Then package is also very important because finally you have to mount the device on your PCB, right, to get a compact solution. And this shows you that now there is a trade-off. As I told earlier, for example, you look at the switching frequency requirement, right? There is a design trade-off. As switching frequency goes up, your switching loss will also go up. Now, if the power rating of the converter is low or medium, not very high, then the overall loss will also be low, right? But if your power rating of the converter is very high, then your switching loss will also be very high. So in that case, for high power converter, you cannot have you cannot have high switching frequency. Okay. So for example, you look at this particular graph. What it is saying that what is the preferred zone for MOSFETs, which is like MOSFET. It is maybe a good idea, though it is on the optimistic side, that voltage requirement from 100 to 1000. Beyond that, MOSFET you don't want to use. Then current also, you see, beyond 100 ampere, roughly, you don't want to use a single MOSFET. By discrete, it means that it is a single MOSFET. What is module? Module could be a package. Let's say 2 switches in this fashion. So this is called a hub bridge. or one leg, right? So this entirely can come as a package, and that will be in a module. So you can understand, since it is done in a very compact manner, the parasitic component will be less in this, and you can go with slightly higher rating also. Okay, but in practical application, generally the MOSFET we have with low cost or at least decent cost, we generally don't go beyond 400, 500. At max 650. Beyond that, MOSFET is generally not preferred. Otherwise, it cost goes up. What is the reason? Main reason is that RDS on actually varies proportional to the this voltage blocking requirement. Okay. So as for low voltage blocking requirement, your RDS on will be pretty less, and your loss will also be less, right? And that's why MOSFET is preferred when your voltage rating requirement is much lesser. And if current requirement is much higher, then generally what we do, we connect several MOSFET in parallel. Okay, and as you know, if we connect MOSFET in parallel, so basically their RDS on will also become less, because parallel combination will give you lesser RDS on, right? So that's how you can go with high number of larger number of parallel connected devices if your current rating is high. Then if you look at IGBT, see, IGBT voltage rating is can go. Maybe present day it is available at 1. Even 2 kilovolt, even slightly higher also. You have to look at those. So as I told, you have to study this website like Element 14 or Mauser. You study, you see what is the present day which is available, and you'll get a clear idea. So you can see IGBT is preferred with slightly higher voltage rating, right? And it can control, it can have high current also. But you look at thyristor and GTO, this can even take higher voltage, right? So you can understand, based on your requirement, you can select these devices. And what about switching frequency? As I told earlier, MOSFET kind of devices can have high switching frequency because their overall switching loss is lesser. But you look at this IGCT or this phase control thyristor. Basically, these are a thyristor family, some component, and look at SCR, this silicon-based device. Silicon control rectifier also come in this. So they are preferred with lower switching frequency, right? IGBT is kind of mid, right? It can go with medium frequency, it can go with medium voltage. So this is how you do it. And present day, I mean, the most commercially available devices are based on silicon structure, not germanium. Okay, silicon-based devices are present day. These are most commercially viable solution. The next solution that are coming already came in market, but their bulk price are not very small and not low yet. So these are the two devices. These are emerging now, and they are giving a lot of benefit. You can read this in your free time, but their cost is on the higher side. Okay, so one is gallium nitride. This is generally preferred when your voltage is again around maybe 600, less than 600 volt, 650 volt in that zone. And silicon carbide is, of course, beyond this voltage is generally preferred. Right? So gallium nitride, roughly you can think of a replacement of MOSFET, and silicon carbide maybe these devices may be a replacement of traditional silicon-based IGBT. So this GaN and SiC, these are just material, right? So GaN-based, I can have a MOSFET. Just to clarify this, I can have a MOSFET based on only silicon, or maybe a gallium nitride structure also, right? And then I can have a IGBT, which is maybe silicon based, also silicon carbide based, right? So remember, this silicon GaN, these are the material that are being used. But MOSFET or IGBT, these are the main switches, right? So they will have distinct structure, PN, PN, then sometime it will be PN plus, N minus. Okay, in those semiconductor material, whether you are using a silicon or gallium nitride or silicon carbide, that is your choice. But overall device structure will remain same. Okay, so now let me give you a different, let me take you to a different route. I will come back to this later on. Just let me have one more slide. In between, if you have any doubt, please let me know. We can discuss. So now let's try to understand an application. Okay. For example, let's say I want to study motor controller. Motor controller for electric vehicle. This I will study in detail in module 4, but some general topic I'm just trying to give you. So motor controller, basically, as you understand, it will be a DC to AC converter. So what structure wise it will have? There will be a capacitor, as I told earlier, input capacitor why we need, right? Then there will be 6 switching devices for 3-phase DC to AC converter. So we're talking about DC to AC converter 3-phase. You need not understand how converter works now. We are looking from a generic perspective, and this is your motor. So motor will have 3-phase. So one I'll connect here, one I'll take it here, then another I'll take it to this point. So these are A, B, C. Here also A, B, C, right? This is how we'll be connecting it. And a battery will be connected here. Right. So to control this kind of inverter or system, what are the components that we need? What are the components that are required to build such system? What do you think? Apart from this, or you can also note down this value. What are the things that you need to build such a solution? Come up with some, for example, let's say I'll start with, I need say 6 MOSFET, okay, or IGBT. So let me just give me the other thing. What do you think? What else I need to physically build it? Point number 2, what do you need? So remember,
Capacitor, battery.
This is given to you. Let us say these are the input and output, right? That is given to you. Forget about them. What else do you need? Capacitor, you said, right? We need capacitor. Anything else?
Sir, some signal to control these MOSFETs.
Okay. So someone has to turn on and off those MOSFET, right? So those who information will be coming from some logic, right? So generally what happens is in electric vehicle, you know, any bike or anything you operate, I need a brake command, I need a accelerator command, right? But these are kind of mechanical commands. So first you convert them into electrical and feed this information to a microcontroller or DSP, right? So where some logic will be there that if the driver has pressed more accelerator, you apply this amount of gate pulse rate. If brake is applied, you do some other strategy. So all those things will be written in a microcontroller or DSP, right? What else you need? Think about basic component also, right? Remember, you're building it from the scratch. Nothing is given to you. You have to do everything. What else you need? There are so many other things. You think about minute things. Huh? Wires, right? Next.
Sir, the switches, I mean, there might be also problem because motor is also like an inductor when we are switching on and off.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that is solved by putting 2 switches on a leg, right? So motor current will never be discontinuous. Either it can have a flow through the top device or it can flow through the bottom device. So that you see these switches are bidirectional, right? So that is taken care by this inverter structure. Additional thing you don't need.
Sir, a PCB or a breadboard to hold on the MOSFETs and
Okay.
everything.
Good. Remember, we need a proper PCB. Yeah? Power electronics no breadboard, please. I don't know what is spelling. Well, you'll understand this. We don't want breadboard. Huh? That is very risky for power electronics. We want PCB, proper PCB. Next.
So some connectors like we should be able to remove some components also, like motor connector.
Yeah, connector terminals are very important, right? Finally, the wire coming from the battery, you have to take it to your PCB, right? You have to have some terminal. So motor also. Good. Next.
So we need like gates and oscillators.
Soldering for the PCB.
One by one. Can you repeat?
Soldering for the PCB.
Right. We need some soldering arrangement. Yes.
So we need logic gates and oscillators.
Yeah. Basically, we need the driver circuit. In that, those things will be there. You know, as I told earlier, a microcontroller will give you hardly 3.3 volt and 5 volt maybe and few milliampere. With using that, you cannot turn on the devices, right? So you have to take the signal and you'll be giving to driver circuit that will finally give pulses to the switches. Anything else?
Sir, sensor.
Yes, that's a very important thing. Sensors. What kind of sensors?
Hall sensor.
What it gives you?
Like the
Sir,
position of the
yes, sir. Position.
Sometimes I need position sensor. Sometimes I need speed sensor. Okay. These two are not same, remember. Though from position sensor you can get the speed, but you need to know the initial position. These are again some minute details of drives. Position is basically with respect to a given reference, how much your rotor has rotated. What is the degree, right, in theta. Whereas speed sensor will give you the omega, the speed in RPM, at what speed it is rotating. Any other sensor you need? You need to read this brake and accelerator, right? These are mechanical things. You need some electrical conversion.
transducer.
Right. Maybe a transducer. Anything you need? Sensor. Very important thing, we need current sensor. Okay. See, this whatever current you are sending to motor, it should be limited, right? Due to some transient or some sudden change, if current goes to a very high value, it will damage your switches, it will damage your motor also. So generally what we do, we sense this current and we keep on monitoring those currents so that as soon as I see it is trying to exceed some more than permissible value, I'll be limiting my switching. I'll control my switching. Okay. Current sensor, we need sometimes voltage sensor also. So how to use this current sensor, voltage sensor? You'll see there is one video on it. On the most probably the last video on that my playlist. Okay, power electronics. So this you need. Anything else?
Sir, amplifier to amplify the sensor output and heat sink if there is a lot of heat generated.
Heat sink is a must. Heat sink is a must. Without heat sink, it cannot work. Heat sink basically cooling arrangement. Okay. Especially for electric vehicle, the cooling is done through liquid cooling also. Just putting a aluminum heatsink is not sufficient. You will be doing a active cooling. Okay, you'll be passing some liquid through the heatsink surface. Heatsink will be there. Then on the heatsink surface, you'll be allowing some coolant to flow, a liquid, maybe a glycol. This term you have to understand slowly because if you're targeting EV sector, or you have to understand this. So basically, you'll be applying some cold liquid, and then once it is passing through the heatsink, it will get heated up. Then it will go to another chamber where you will cool it again. Again, it will come in a cyclic manner. You need heatsink, and along with heatsink, you need something called a mica sheet. That you see, there is a lecture on how to design heatsink, how to select it. There I have discussed this. You need mica sheet, you need heatsink compound. Okay. Anything else?
Sir, maybe some protection circuits, like for power.
Excellent, excellent. We need several protection circuits, especially for application like electric vehicle. Okay, let me give you some example. Can you give me example? I also add.
So reverse like polarity protection circuit, like in opposite polarity, if accidentally we connect the power source.
Exactly. That's a very important. Good. XC, I don't know my spelling is correct or what. Accidental reverse polarity. REVERSC, reverse polarity connection of battery. Huh? If you connect the battery by reverse direction by mistake, it will be creating a lot of problem. Units nervous circuit, right? For switch protection. You need anything coming to your mind else?
Sir, spikes in the current. So, for example, if we are moving in the forward direction and suddenly if we have to increase the speed in the reverse direction to huge extent, there might be spike in the current waveform, like huge current from positive to negative change.
Right. Very good. Over current limit, over voltage limit, right? So as you see, there is some sudden current spiking up. What you'll do, you'll reduce your switching. Duty ratio will reduce so that current can be reduced. Then over temperature protection. Basically, we have a temperature sensor mounted near the heatsink or the MOSFET, and you keep on measuring the temperature. As soon as you see temperature is going up, you reduce your current. Okay. Anything else coming to your mind?
So, for that, we will need a signal conditioning system as well.
Yeah. So those itself is a each topic itself is a 30 minutes lecture actually. So let us not go into the detail. Huh? But someday, that's why I said if you allow me, maybe we can have a discussion on this also, because these are something which you need for your uh, practical knowledge more into it, right? But these are not in our syllabus in more detail. We cannot have each and everything under each level course. So protection arrangement. Anything else? Hmm. Think about it. Huh? If you need anything else, and right, and then you can add them later on. Okay. So, but you what I am trying to uh, show is that when I say power electronic converter, don't just think about it. It is just switches and inductor and capacitor. If you want to build the complete system, you need so many other things also. Okay. So then. Right, and then in the PCB you'll be having PCB tracks. So there you'll be using copper. Huh? Mostly you'll be using copper for the PCB tracks. Right. So let me stop over here on this. You think about it. Huh? Visualize this, and later on we'll decide. And if you want to add something. Okay, it is 10:36, and you have to understand difference between the important switches. So in power electronics, which are the most popular switches that we are going to study? Can you please repeat, or can you please answer this? What are the most popular switches that we are going to study more or have more application now? What do you think? So you may not be having clarity. Let me put it down. We'll be using MOSFET, IGBT quite frequently. Diode we will be using. Then maybe the SCR or thyristor. Okay, these two you have to understand as much as possible. SCR will be discussed during your AC to DC converter, not for other application. We don't use it much. Diode will be used mostly in DC-DC converter, and as you know, in inverter, MOSFET, IGBT, those will be used. DC-DC converter also. Anyway, that you will learn later. So let me quickly take you to the difference between IGBT and MOSFET. Their detailed lecture is already there. You have to remember, you have to understand the switching behavior. for your test, etc. or tutorial behavior. Basically, how to calculate losses. You know, there are two main losses, conduction loss and switching loss. How to calculate loss, that you must understand. Then how to select heat sink, that you must understand, and one or two example of snubber circuit. These are problems. Okay, this will come as a numerals, and then there will be some MCQs or fill in the blanks or those things. For that you have to understand this, what I'm discussing, like what is the difference between IGBT and MOSFET, what is the difference between thyristor and MOSFET. So those things you just study. Okay. So let me quickly tell you some difference between IGBT and MOSFET. So basically IGBT is combination of MOSFET plus BJT. Okay, its switching is similar to MOSFET, but its conduction is quite similar to BJT. So one of the key differences, MOSFET always comes with inbuilt body diode. Here it will be added externally if required, right? Another difference could be generally its switching frequency will be much higher. You can go maybe 100, 200 kilohertz also. But application wise, typically this will be less than 25 kilohertz in most of the application. Then in the gate drive, you want to turn on and off, right? So there, to turn on, we'll be applying a positive voltage, V gate and source. Okay, so 0 and positive, right? But for IGBT, generally we need negative and positive voltage. Okay, so this is for turn off. But for MOSFET, this negative voltage is not required, not mandatory. Because this has a phenomena called tailing current that you will understand if you had gone through this entire lecture. So that makes IGBT a slow kind of switching phenomena. So to make it faster, you apply negative voltage so that you can take out charge carrier at faster rate. Okay. And then you just go through it. Mostly you'll understand the other point. How do you model MOSFET when it is turned on? It is modeled by a RDS on. IGBT, how it is modeled? It is generally by a voltage source and in series with some resistance, like diode. Okay. So similarly, you add some other point. What is their reverse blocking capability? So as you can understand, if a diode is already there in MOSFET inbuilt, it cannot have any reverse blocking. But IGBT, some will come without the body diode, right? So then it can block little bit of negative voltage. Sometime with proper design, it can block decent amount of reverse voltage also. So there is some concept called PT and NPT. This is punch through IGBT. And this is non-punch through. So those you'll learn detail if you go to the other lecture on this IGBT. So this another very important point. I need your attention here. Just this is very easy. Again, it will help you understand one key difference which I have not included. Plus a stark difference is there between IGBT and MOSFET. Plus one important difference. We'll understand using the next slide. So all of you, please pay attention. You have to solve this. Let's say I have a 10-volt source and this resistance is 1 ohm. Okay, and I have this symbol is for IGBT. So first question, when there is no gate pulse given to T1, no gate pulse is given, right? What will be I? What is your answer? What will be your answer? Quick, quick. We don't have much time.
0.
0.
0, right? Yeah, obviously, right? Because switch is not conducting, diode is forward bias, reverse bias, so no problem. This, when gate pulse is provided,
10.
yeah, it will be approximately 10. Good. We'll go to next circuit. What is the difference? Look at this. What will be I?
Uh, 10 minus the voltage drop by 1.
What will be I? Can you give me some value?
9.7.
9. Around 9 ampere something.
0.3.
You have to remember it is minus around 9, right?
Yeah, minus 9.
Or approximately 10, if you neglect the diode. But this minus sign is important, okay? Because current will flow in a reverse direction, okay? And who conducts? Diode conducts, right? So in our mind, let us assume that there are two things going on parallelly. One is the switch, another is the diode. Okay. So if I call it, let's say I switch, and this I call it like maybe ID. So basically, it will be ID, right? Minus ID. Diode conducts. What happens when you do this? Okay. What is your answer now?
Will it be the same?
Yeah. Just to see. Why? Why? Can you tell me?
It's not a MOSFET, right? So it cannot conduct in the current in the negative direction. So current has to flow
Yes.
through the diode.
Exactly. So basically, diode will conduct. So even if you give gate pulse, the IGBT part is not going to conduct, correct? Because it is reverse bias. This you have to understand. Okay, it's basically reverse bias. Okay. Now, had it been a MOSFET, this would have been remain same star. Okay, star remains same. Let me call it 1. Let me call it 2. Okay, so 1 A B remains same. Then 2A remains same. By same, I mean same with IGBT, right? Because in this case also, if you don't give gate pulse, MOSFET channel will not form. But there is a difference in 2B. Okay, what will be your answer to 2B? If it is a MOSFET,
Around minus 10 ampere.
minus 10, and what will be the path? Is it the diode or the MOSFET channel?
MOSFET.
Exactly. So this is the main difference between IGBT and not the diode. Typically, yeah. Those who did not understood this, you have to realize this. Huh? There is a difference between MOSFET structure and IGBT structure. So when we give gate pulse in a MOSFET, so this could be your source and this could be the drain. As soon as I give gate pulse, the channel will fall. Gate pulse given, channel forms. And if a channel forms, basically you can have current flow in both the direction. Depends on which side you are giving what polarity. So if VD is greater than VS, then current will flow from. So you are applying positive voltage here, negative voltage here, and generally, as we know, we'll be using an N-channel MOSFET, right? So maybe this part will be giving a lot of electrons. Electron. Okay. So if I apply positive voltage here, electron will move upward and current will flow from D to S. But if I apply source voltage higher than drain voltage, the electron will flow towards source and current will flow from source to drain. Now, if I apply VD greater than VS, diode is reverse bias. Anyhow, right? What happens to diode here? So let us try to take a new slide. Sorry, the system is slightly slow. New slide. We have taken it correctly. Yeah. So now it happened like this. I have a channel formed, and in parallel to this, I have a diode also. And how do I model the channel? By RDS on. So it is something like this. I have RDS on. I have diode. And I have applied a voltage in this polarity. So current will flow in this or in this. What do you think? Who will decide that?
The
How to
resistance,
decide?
the RDS on.
Yeah. If RDS on is much lesser, so then let's say the circuit requires around 10 ampere of current. And typical RDS on, as I told earlier, for the favorable zone of MOSFET, it will be maybe around 10 milliohm, maybe 20 milliohm in that zone. Okay, and sometime we'll connect several MOSFET in parallel, so it will come down even lesser. So let's take this number. Let's say it is 20 milliohm, and my current requirement is 10 ampere. So what will be the voltage in across the resistance? If I assume that resistance is conducting, it will be 10 into 20 into 10 raised to minus 3, right? So 0.2 volt. Is it correct? Yeah, it's 0.2 volt. So this 0.2 volt won't be sufficient to turn on your diode, right? It may need around say 1 volt V threshold for the diode. Okay. Or else, if you assume the diode will conduct, then the across diode I must have 1 volt. And what does it signify? If I have a 20 milliohm resistance here, then the current across the 20 milliohm has to be 1 by 20, right? 1 by 20 into 10 power 3, right? So this will be, I'll make it 1000 by 20. This will go 50 amp. So it needs 50 amp current here, right? If the diode has to conduct. So basically what is signifying, if current is higher than 50 ampere, then maybe the diode will conduct. But below that, my MOSFET will conduct. And what is the benefit? If the current goes through any current will go through the least impedance path, right? Whatever it is getting. So, any case, if it is going to the channel of the MOSFET, your loss will be less, typically. I hope this is clear to you. If it is not clear, let me know. And remember, while you will be studying a converter, DC-DC converter, there you will study a converter known as synchronous buck converter. There you have to understand this point, right? This philosophy is applied there. Okay, so there the diode we are studying in buck converter, right? The step down converter DC-DC, the diode will be replaced by a MOSFET so that current can flow to the channel of the MOSFET, not through the diode. So that we study in detail there. What else? Achha, this also you have to remember. I don't have much time now. I'll just take up this and we will wind up. Unique feature of thyristor, you remember, with respect to this popular device, it can block negative voltage easily, right? To decent amount, considerable amount. That makes it a good choice for AC-DC. Because AC system, sometimes voltage will go to positive naturally, sometimes it will go to negative. So there you need a device which can block both positive and negative voltage. It can block, right? The switch requires both positive and negative blocking capability. So MOSFET can't have it. Generally, IGBT is not also a good choice for this, right? So that's why a thyristor is a good choice. This I have already discussed. In case if your current rating requirement is more than the, let's say you have a MOSFET who can give you 100 ampere, but your current requirement is 300 ampere. So one is available, one is required. Is 300 ampere. So what I should do? I'll use 3 MOSFET in parallel, at least, right? Sometimes we'll be doing more MOSFET in parallel. More in parallel means RDS1 will come down. Loss will come down, typically. Okay. And same with the voltage rating. If I need higher voltage blocking, I may require some series connected device. As you know, series connected device will have higher voltage blocking capability. But remember, this is generally not used. Not popular. Huh? We'll discuss later on. Because when they're connected in series, they have to carry exactly same amount of current, right? But assume that any two switching device, even though it is coming from same manufacturer, there will be some mismatch in two switches. So think about this. If one of the switches is slightly slower than the other switches, so then it cannot turn on and turn off at the same time with the other switches, right? So that will create a problem in this kind of scenario. So generally, when I need higher blocking voltage, I don't connect more devices in series. Instead, we go for multi-level concept. Multi-level converter. I'm not sure. Most probably you won't be studying this in UG level course, but just remember that that is one of the solution. Using a multi-level converter, it's a different category of converter. This quiz you take up maybe in the next. I don't have now. I don't have much time. Just try to solve this quizzes. I'll be uploading this in the MS Team channel and sort it out. Mostly, if you follow this lecture, you'll be able to understand. You'll be able to answer all of them. Let me just quickly go through our plan, and then I'll end in 2 minutes. Can you see this PDF, the syllabus document?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So now what you understood is that I took several lectures in live mode. Then we had already recorded YouTube lectures. Of course, those live lectures are also already, all of them are uploaded in YouTube. And you see most of these topics, more or less we have covered. So some topics are covered in recorded lectures, some topics like this, for example, this switching device discussion, I took it a much detailed view on this so that it helps you to take a decision on the later part. This mostly we did in live interaction mode. And some of these things are already recorded. So you have to go through it. And this is how this module 1 is end. We have reached the end for module 1. From September 1, this will start. And Professor SC will take this part. Okay. And before that, on next Monday, we have a tutorial. So for tutorial, we'll be having mostly the switching devices as the syllabus that I have mentioned in the Google Doc. Okay. So follow that. And before that, we don't have any class. But if you want me to clarify anything, you can drop a mail to me, or you can just post in the MS Team or chat in the MS Team. I'll be able to clarify that. But before Monday, you should cover the required syllabus. And we have a class test on 8th September, right? As per Institute guideline. So for that, this entire module 1 will be the syllabus. Do you have any query regarding this?
Where is the link of the Google Doc? Can you tell me?
I have sent it in email. I have sent it in MS Team post also.
Oh, okay, okay. Thanks.
Just ask your friend. They'll be having it, right? Just ask from them. Is there anyone else who don't have this Google Doc where I discussed about all these video links, this timeline? Is there anyone who don't have access to this? Is there anyone who has access to this?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right. So you help those who doesn't have access. Good. So with this, let me wind up, and we are meeting again on Monday.